All right. Welcome, everybody. Hey, Garrett. How are you?
Daren, I'm doing all right, man. It's good to see you. It's a
Hey.
different recording day than normal.
Yeah. You know what? There's something interesting that we should announce today. We just crossed our year mark, dude.
Yeah, what is this? Episode 52, right? One a
This
week.
is, I think so. I think we're at episode 52, or maybe we're recording 53, but
Wow.
this next week is like the overlap of our first episode and 52. So that's kind of fun.
Congratulations. And to kick it off, we have an amazing special guest, right? To mark the year, 1 year anniversary.
Yeah. Jon Cheney is joining us today. Jon, thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here on the 1 year anniversary. That's one a week is not easy work.
We've
This
been
is true.
planning this episode for a year, John. We've been planning.
Perfect. No, I'm glad. I'm glad. Me too. Me too.
We're honored. Well, no, we are thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Of
So
course.
today our topic is AI and film, and so that's why you're here joining us today, Jon. You are the founder of Gen AI PI. I'm going to let you kind of tell people why we're talking to you about AI today.
Well, awesome. Hey, you know what? Excited to be here. I don't know if I'm the most qualified to talk about AI and film, but here's the thing. I'm really good at AI and know a lot about it, and I really like to watch movies. So maybe that does qualify me, right? No, yeah. So I've been in AI for a while, and I can go into my background later. But yeah, I'm currently the founder of the General AI Proficiency Institute, and really focus on helping train employees, and employers and everybody in between, really focusing on the business world and making sure people are ready for AI, right? Making sure that they don't get left behind and smashed against the rocks when this big tsunami hits.
That right there, I think, nails why we're talking to you today. Because if you're helping prepare people for this onslaught, then we want to be in that mix as well as filmmakers. So I think that leads into a perfect first question, which kind of encapsulates what everybody is talking about today, at least what I see online. So if AI can write, shoot, and edit film, what's left for filmmakers? What's happening to our industry? What should we be looking out for? I know that's like three questions wrapped in one, but we're already seeing just in the last few weeks, Google VO3 released, and it's very realistic. And a lot of people are even more concerned and freaked out than they were 2 weeks ago. So if the tools exist, then what happens to filmmakers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't think filmmakers are going anywhere. I think that the pattern that technology has always followed is that every time there's an advancement in whatever it is, right? Video is actually a big one that I've been in for a long time. I kind of joked. I actually have, I'm not in filmmaking necessarily, but I've always loved video editing, right? And I have 20 GoPros and 5 drones and several DSLRs and super nice cameras and all the tripods. And I'm sitting in a studio, right? I'm a creator, right? And so I really, really have loved that. But part of the thing that I just get excited about is as technology advances, these things that used to only be available to people that had tons of money become available to all, right? It lowers the barrier to entry. We all now have phones in our pockets that literally are used to film movies now, right? I mean, movies that are ending up on the big screen, right? Maybe not every shot, but the phone is capable of taking incredible shots. And, of course, Apple goes out of its way to show, hey, you can do this. And they have people make films exclusively with the iPhone, right? And so, that's an example of, hey, we're putting technology that is professional quality in everybody's hands. Now we're jumping into AI where you can now, have a soundtrack written in 30 seconds, and you can have a wardrobe put together in 30 seconds. And, all of, the makeup and everything, the lighting, the editing, the post, like everything can be done with AI. And so I think it's going to just lower the barrier to entry. You're going to have more creators. I still think that the big best movies and the best creators are going to float to the top, and that's who we're going to watch, in the theater on the weekend. But the quality of content potentially will increase over time. That's a very positive way to look at it. I have negative ways to look at it too, but I really do believe that this technology will lower the barrier to entry so that anybody can jump in and create really amazing things with just needing to be able to vocalize or verbalize what they want to see.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I agree. And I think I mean I think it's super. It's repeating itself, right? When we say, oh well, cameras are getting better and better and better, or now a DSLR, I could shoot a movie on a DSLR. And is that going to destroy independent film, or destroy good quality storytelling? No, I think you're right on. It's only going to improve it. So uh, yeah, as a filmmaker, I want to figure out how to embrace AI, to use it as a tool to be able to help improve my storytelling or audience building or distribution efforts. And then also there's this very much, now that we can all be filmmakers, we still have to be able to figure out how to get a film to an audience, like
Yeah.
as far as build an audience, right? And I think that that's something that hopefully an AI, AI can even help us do that. Am I wrong in that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's distribution is key, right? One thing that I teach a lot of business leaders is how to build software, in hours, right? Something, you can rebuild Calendly, for example, in about 30 minutes at this point, right? So if that moat is gone of on the creation side, right? Well, that doesn't mean that everybody's using my new Calendly clone right now. I'm still going to have to go build a brand. I'm going to have to really connect with people. I'm going to have to show them why I'm better, why they should trust me. A lot of these words, connection, trust, humanity, like those things are going to mean a lot more in this day of AI. And so I think it's going to be, AI can certainly assist in distribution in terms of, hey, can we automate, email outflows, or can we automate, social media posts and things like that? Sure, right? But ultimately, I scroll past AI written content. Like I teach AI, right? But I scroll past it. I can spot it in an instant, and I'm not interested in what the AI has to say to me. I am interested, however, in people that use AI to express their real human opinions. That's what I really care about. I want to connect with somebody. And if AI is going to help enhance that, that's fine. But you have to be careful. You have to be careful to just let AI take over for you, because people are going to see through it and they're not going to want to engage.
Yeah. What I've tried to think about is, like, we've gone through plenty of times where technology has democratized that ability to participate, right? And what has happened in the past is it hasn't replaced the existing things. It's in addition to. So it's like I think we started with radio, right? And that was probably the earliest one. And then we added silent films, and that radio didn't go away. And then we added talkies, and then we added color, and then we added TV, and then we added streaming, and we still have movies in theaters. We still have TV that's happening, right? It might be shifting, it might be changing and adapting, but every time a new technology has come out, from what my limited knowledge, it just means that there's more. And so that's not a question, that's just an interesting context, because I think what happens then when it's democratized is it gets noisy. There's more content. I mean, you look at the difference between pre-social media and short form video and now, and we have a lot more content that's coming out every day that is, vying for our attention. And we only have so many hours in the day. And so what's happening is that, in addition to, we have more noise and it's harder to get the signal. But I think that goes back to what you were just talking about, which is that ability to connect with an audience is really what's going to be the most valuable asset or attribute for filmmakers going forward. Do you agree? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I mean, because content can be created so easily today, right? Bad content just doesn't cut it. You can't fake it, right? Even good content creators struggle, now in order to say you made it, on a piece of content, you went viral, right? You have 1 million views, 2 million views, 10 million views. If you just get 2,000 views on something, that's fine. Maybe a few people saw it and that's great. But the reality is, you're still at the bottom of the barrel, and you gotta really, step up your game in order to come through that sea of noise, right? If you want to be part of the signal, you gotta really stand out. And whether it's created with AI or not, that's not going to change. I think it's going to get harder, of course, to stand out. But another thing that is kept, crossing my mind here is, a lot of this talent that's worried about, like, where am I going to go, right? Where am I going to where am I going to make money? How am I going to feed my family? Right? From the makeup artist to the wardrobe designer to the actors themselves, right? If they can be replaced potentially. I think that live entertainment actually, just from, plays, musicals, live comedy, whatever. I think that live entertainment, real human connection there is going to go through a new kind of renaissance. I think we're going to see a huge uptick. A lot of talent that's been in Hollywood is going to be forced to find new ways to make money. And I'm guessing they land on that physical real life experience. That's going to be where the premium starts to live.
Interesting. Yeah.
John, what are some things that you wish the general kind of those late adapters, maybe it's not late adapters, you're saying, hey, this tsunami is going to
It's
hit.
still early.
Okay, all right. So
Still
what are guys like me who are like, okay, all I want to do is make movies. Like that's my goal. That's how I want to feed my family. And I'll continue to do that. AI or iPhone or whatever else new technology comes out and helps and enables me to do that. What should I know? About AI, today that could help me in, the next process of production or gearing up for a next movie? Is that a fair question?
It is. It is. And I think the easy answer is, and it's not an easy process, but it's an easy answer, is you just have to be trying everything. Right. I mean,
Okay.
the best way to know what's out there is to just go out and play with it. Right. Pay for Veo 3. It's $250 right now is about what you got to pay in order to really start playing with it at any type of scale. But play with that. Jump into Midjourney, jump into Kling, jump into all of these different tools that are out there, and see what you can do, see what you can create. Say, hey, you know what? I'm going to create a little short film. You see a lot of stuff. I see this on YouTube and Instagram and X and whatever, where people are sharing, hey, I made this 90-second trailer, or I made this 4-minute short, and I did it all with AI. Right? I designed the characters. And it's very well thought out stuff. Right? It's like really cool content. Right? Well, they'll start in ChatGPT, and they'll build a script and a plot and all this thing, and they'll work through it. And it's not just ChatGPT writing it; they're just using it to organize it and put it together. And then they'll use something like ChatGPT as well to then build prompts that can successfully create characters, maybe in Midjourney, or scenes in Midjourney. And then they'll take those beautiful scenes that have been created and they'll pull it over to something like Veo and say, all right, let's now bring this to life, and let's have this character consistency and things that are now capable or possible with AI that weren't even 3 months ago, right? Where so the reality is, if you want to be a filmmaker, then go be a filmmaker, right? And use AI. You got to figure out how to do it. If you don't know how to do this and your competitors are doing it, they're gonna build their amazing blockbuster with a $40,000 budget, and you're still spending 4 million, right? And or 40 million or 400 million, right? Depending on the scale. Obviously, this is all depending on
Sure.
what you're looking at. But the point is, now for a few $100s, maybe a few $1,000s, because video is actually one of the most expensive use cases of AI right now. It eats a lot of credits, and you got to pay a little bit of money. But comparatively speaking, right? I did a shot. I created a shot. I went to see the new Mission Impossible movie, right? And Tom Cruise is just a genius, right? The GOAT. And so I came home and I said, I'm going to recreate one of his crazy shots where he's on the plane, whatever. I'm going to do it in Veo. And I did it. And, it took me maybe 4 tries to get the prompt right. But now here's this guy, super action scene. You've got music in the background. I made it raining. He jumps from one plane to another. And, I created that scene all on my own with a few prompts, and I'm not a filmmaker, and I'm putting out a Hollywood studio, a Hollywood quality, now granted it's only 8 seconds, right? It's only an 8-second clip, but, piece together enough 8-second clips and you've got yourself a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the filmmakers that are just getting started, who constantly ask, how do I raise money for my short film? What's the best way to get crowdfunding or equity or donations or whatever it might be?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of waiting for permission or waiting for financing, I think, has to go away. People can literally, like you said, get on one of these platforms, make their short film for a few $100s
Mm-hmm.
and time. And like, if you're a writer or if you're a director, like, I think you're going to be so much better off and so much farther ahead if you have done 5, 10, 20 AI generated short films, as in 5, 10, 20. I have a vision, I understand timing, and you're you're just going to have more chops than waiting around for that same amount of time for someone to give you a chance to get on set and do it with humans.
Well, you hit a critical point that I want
Yeah.
to hit and then keep going. But I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur, and that's really where I've kind of made my mark in the world. I've raised tens of millions of dollars. I started a company back in 2016, sold it a few years ago, and it was in the augmented reality space, actually, right? So it's been I'm in this kind of tech, and visual space, and really have always loved those things. But the thing that I'm teaching right now is I teach a course that I do quite often that's called How to Build a Business with AI in a Weekend. And one of the things that just blows my mind is the type of things that you can create now with almost no risk, right? In order to just get your, even just a pilot episode for a TV series or something like that, right? It has historically cost, at least tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, or millions if you're really going all in. But now you can do that again for a couple $100 in the same way, right? You can now build a piece of software. You can go get your first customers literally by next week. You come with an idea, you build the software, you have your first customer by next Thursday. And that almost eliminates the risk. And I love that. I love that MVP. An MVP can be, I raised millions of dollars for my startup back in 2016 because I didn't know how to write software. I had to go hire really expensive developers, and then we had to work on it for 18 months to build it. Then I got my first dollar. And so I'm already several $1 million. My investors are at risk, all of that stuff. There's a huge amount of risk and stress, by the way, that goes along with that when you're taking other people's money and you don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
And now you can just, hey, let's get that proof of concept. Let's put the pilot episode, let's put whatever, the trailer together, and do that with, again, a couple $100. And boom, now you know whether or not this concept is going to land.
Yeah. I imagine that if you're a director, for example, and Garrett, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but like you could create the trailer for the movie you want to fund and produce with AI in a couple of days or a few weeks and a few $100. Like how much easier would it be to go in and say, this is the movie we're making. This is what it's going to feel like, sound like, look like. We're going to do it with humans and we're going to make it more realistic than it already looks. But like that compared to a pitch deck or a sizzle reel or an animatic or a storyboard, to me seems like a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think any time, and we've seen this, Darren, in pitching, anytime we can eliminate that gap between imagination and actual, that's a good thing. So for the investor that says, if you go and say, imagine this, and say, okay, well, that didn't work. Well, let's show them a drawing. Imagine this is a movie. And then, no, that didn't work. And now I've actually done pitches where obviously these rip reels where you're stealing scenes from other movies and cutting them together, and I've put the investor's name on as the executive producer. Like, imagine, and they go, "Oh, okay, that's easy for me to see." Right.
Yeah.
So yes, I think this is the next level of that, which is a great idea to try to put together a trailer.
Yeah.
I think it's going, Darren, I think it's going to elevate what is expected in the pitch meeting, right? Like if I had some, I invest in startups and other things and whatever. If I had a startup come to me with some software and they said, I've got this idea, I'd be like, you're not getting it done. Like, have you built it yet? Like, do you have any customers yet? Like,
Yeah.
come back to me. Like, sounds like a cool idea. Go prove it, right? Go build something. Go get your first few customers. I don't care if you have 10 customers. Come back to me after you've built it and you've proven that people actually like this and want to pay for it. And then I'll really look at. But now, yeah, you're going to have one guy that walks into a pitch meeting for this movie and says, hey, here's my script, here's my ideas, and they're like, okay, cool. Do you have anything to show me? Oh no, we haven't raised any money yet. Okay, well, can't you invest $1,000 in maybe a few nights, to figure this out and try to show me something, right? I mean, that it's really just going to elevate that process.
Yeah.
One of the things you said, John, that's really kind of resonating with me is, I asked about what do we need to do? What do I need to know? And as you talked about the different opportunities and solutions, you kept coming back to the concept of it being well thought out, right? And I think that that's one thing that isn't going to be replaced it's not going to replace the person creating the film or the art, right? And you're saying, hey, here's an idea, right? We're going to initiate this idea, and I'm going to think through it. I might create different examples on AI and things like that, but John, you said it has to be well thought, whether it's a business or a film or a story. And an actor on set, I don't know, isn't going to respond to a cleverly written ChatGPT prompt. Like, you have to really kind of think through what you're doing and be able to communicate that very well.
I just imagined you on set putting in, I want to tell my actor to do this. Please create the prompt that I can tell my
Yeah.
actor.
Imagine hashtag image, you know, yeah. Maybe they will. Maybe I missed the point. Maybe you're saying, hey, you don't get it. You're not going to be on set with actors anymore. I don't
No,
know.
I think you will. I think you will. I don't think that's going away. I think there's going to be big actors. There's going to be superstars. There's also going to be AI superstars. There will, right? There are now singers out there that are completely AI generated. Their music is completely AI generated. All their social posts are completely AI generated. They do not exist in the real world, right? But they have 1.7 million followers on Instagram, and they're publishing music, and they have hit songs that are now out, right? I mean, it's crazy what's happening there. But yeah,
John, sorry to
Amazing.
interject there, but like there's still a human behind all of that, right? There's still someone prompting every single aspect of that. And so
yeah,
while they may be behind the scenes, like they're still getting the benefit of having 1.7 million followers.
oh
And
yeah,
instead of,
it's almost getting money.
videos about pizza, it's just an AI generated image and,
Yeah,
but there's still like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no like fully autonomous agent AI that has set up its own Instagram account, gotten followers, created stuff on its own, right?
actually, there are.
Oh no.
And we're just at the beginning of that. It's been done now. Now listen, everything AI, anything, at some point you can track it back to whatever human created some prompt, right?
Yeah.
To do that. But there have been, basically challenges that said, hey, set up an agent to run at Twitter and to do this and to do whatever. Like there's one
Case study.
influencer
Yep.
on X that is completely, and by the way, they're very transparent even. They're like, yeah, I'm an AI. And they're tracking and following crypto, meme coins and things like that, right? And they've made over $1 million just from that X account, right? By posting things about meme coins, because it can constantly scrape and find the latest up to date stuff, and it finds things that are kind of hidden gems, all over the place, and so lots of people follow it because they want to be in there, right? And they also accept donations in crypto, right? And there's just a little link there that they created that anyone can just send to this wallet address, and they're making millions of dollars doing this, and it's completely autonomous. Now, obviously, a human set up that agent, right? Now, one thing I want to go back actually to something that Garrett mentioned a second ago. One of the things that I think is really important to understand about how AI works, at least right now, and it may cross this into the AGI world, but right now, really, AI is pattern recognition and pattern regurgitation. And so, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of sick of the same old, right? I don't want to go to the movies and see the same story told over and over again. Although there are the classic storylines that everybody's going to get behind. But I like the originals, right? And AI you might think it's capable of doing the original, but when you really dig down, it's patterning it off of something else.
Yeah.
Humans have the distinct ability to create something truly novel. I read an article this morning that said that a lot of AI models are running out of training data, and they almost don't trust anything that's out there from 2022 on, because they're afraid that it's AI. And then you have this thing that's called a recursive down spiral, right? Because it trains itself on data that it made, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. In order to truly improve an LLM and to have it, become more human-like, it needs human content. But almost all of that content has already been sucked up by all the LLMs and used to, illegally or not, which is another discussion, but then used to train all of those LLMs. And so the reality is humans still have the edge. We still have the edge in creativity and originality.
Yeah. So, what do you say to people who are taking kind of the moral stance or the moral frame on this whole thing, where the argument is, well, AI is trained on human art, and we even have Disney and NBC Universal suing Midjourney right now for
Mhm.
copyright infringement. My understanding is that every single AI company has been sued and is currently being sued and is under litigation for copyright. But that's one side of the moral argument. Like, well, it's trained on human art, and so I'm not going to use it and perpetuate that. The other one I hear often is the environmental impact of AI. It used to be people who were concerned about crypto and the environmental impact it was having. Now it's AI. So what's your stance on that? How do you not justify it? Because I don't know that it needs justification, but how do you reconcile that aspect?
Yeah, the reality is that AI uses a lot less energy and water and all those things than people actually think. The reason why it's consuming a lot of energy right now is because it's being used so much by so many people, right? But when you look down at the per prompt, right, it's tiny fractions of a drop of water per prompt that are being used, and tiny amounts of electricity per prompt that are being used. And but yeah, people look at it in the aggregates and they're saying, we can't even. And the reality is we don't have enough power being produced right now in the U.S. to power what we will need just in the next 5 years. We're actually at about 20% of what we will need, right? So we're going to have to produce a lot of power. Now, here's the cool thing. AI will solve that for us, right? They'll help us make these breakthroughs. One of the things that AI is able to help us do, whether it's in software development or movie creation or whatever, is discovery of new technology and being able to just increase the speed of new discovery, right? You take millions of articles and research and all these things on a certain topic, and a human could go through it and try to identify and try to find patterns, but AI can do that way faster, right? They're taking human work, but then they're saying, hey, have you identified this pattern? This is actually how you solve cold fusion, right? Or cold fission, or nuclear fission or whatever, and being able to create new types of energy that will be able to handle this, better batteries, better whatever, right? And so AI is a tool. It can be used to point at something good, which is, hey, let's save the planet. If that's what your cause is and you're trying to do, hey, we want to make sure we do this and be good stewards over our planet, which I believe in, then yeah, let's use AI and point it towards that. If I want to use AI to go and cause chaos in the news, then I can do that too. It's really, AI is going to amplify. It's going to speed up, amplify, and whatever other word you want to enlarge or aggrandize something. It's going to do whatever that human wants to do at a greater scale.
Wow. That's a big idea right there.
Okay, going back to, I mean, not going back, but taking what you've said now and saying, how do we tie that to our independent filmmaker audience and probably more for selfish interests, like how do I use this? I feel like what you've done is you've introduced me to my dad's workshop, right? And I walk in and I'm a kid and there's a million tools on the shelf,
Yeah.
and I've got the keys to them, but I have no idea what they do or what they're for. Where can I go, or what should I do as a filmmaker to kind of learn the basics, like, or what tool does what and what do I need to use when?
Yeah, I learn a lot, honestly, just hanging out on Instagram and on X, right? I'll just find AI accounts. You just search for the hashtag AI, or you look for video AI or Veo, or you kind of just find a few of the things that are in that place, and just start scrolling, and you see what other people are doing, right? That's what I like to do. When I see other people doing something that inspires me and says, oh wow, hey, I could do that. What if I did my own twist on this or my own spin on this, right? And hey, oh, I didn't know that could do that. And then I go over, the thing that I also do is I see what people are doing, I see what they used to do it, and then I zip over and I pay for the tool, I subscribe to it. Lots of them have free trials, whatever it is, and I try it. And I
Yeah.
say, okay, this is awesome. And now I've got my own opinion. I've got some experience. If I like it, I keep it and I keep working and I keep going. And I'll usually take what I try and I'll share it on LinkedIn, or I'll share it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever it is that I share a lot out there, and I see what the feedback is. And if people are like, wow, this is crazy, this is awesome, well, now I'm just kind of starting to figure out what's working, right? But another thing that I like to do when I'm trying to figure out how to use something new that I haven't done before is I'll use AI to teach me how to use AI, right? And so you can use, whatever your preferred, AI is, whether it's Grok or ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever it is, Perplexity. Go in there and say, hey, I want to create a short, I want to try creating a cohesive, 1 minute, scene, right? With, using AI tools. I'd like to use, Google's, Veo. 3, I'd like to use Sora. I'd like to use, whatever it is that I want to do in terms of, audio and all this stuff. Although if you use Veo 3, you can just do it all in one. But the point is, it will then help you build the prompts. That's really what it comes down to. You have to understand how to talk to it. But
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to talk to it, that's okay. Just ask AI. Just say, hey, how can I talk to this? And it will build this beautiful prompt. And then you can just adjust the prompt. That's the cool thing. You just talk to it. You're the director. You get to be the director, right? When I'm building a piece of software, again, I'm not a software developer, but I'm the director. I say, hey, I want this button to do this. I want, when I do this, it'd be really cool if an email was sent over here and a notification was sent over here, and then there was this animation. Okay, I'll build that for you. Oh, I don't like that. You know what? Let's change that. It's just a matter of being the director and saying, yeah, that was good, or hey, let's take another shot, right? And so it's not rocket science. Like I have 4 kids, ages 7 to 13, basically, and they are all using AI to build video, to build audio, to build games, little software games, right? To do all kinds of stuff, because I've shown them how easy it is. All they have to be able to do is describe what they want. And if they don't like it, they just have to describe what they don't like and move to the next one and move through that process and iterate until they say, hey, I like this now.
Yeah.
Look what I built, Dad.
That's awesome. Garrett, to kind of answer your question too, I think it's different depending on where you're at in the industry. If you're a designer of some kind on set, that's a very different job than a producer or an editor or a director or an actor. And so as a producer, I'm thinking, I really need to understand prompts. I don't necessarily need to be able to get the best output, but I need to understand why it's not working, or how to communicate with it, because that's my job as a producer, is how to get a desired outcome by communicating with people who are responsible for that outcome. And so I had my first experience, vibe coding the other day on Replit and going, okay, ChatGPT, here's what I want to make. Please create a prompt that I can put into Replit that gets me this outcome. And I did exactly what you said, John. And 5 minutes later, I had a working app, and it blew my mind. And so you apply that to film. I haven't actually done it yet, Garrett, but you apply that to, hey, I need a 1 minute sizzle teaser trailer for this movie that I'm going to go and get financing for. Whether it's me doing it or working with an AI trailer artist,
Yeah.
I need to understand how that works. So as a producer, it's more understanding of the communication, the interactivity of it all, and how to get the outcome. Whereas if you're a technician, if you're a designer, if you're an editor, you really need to understand and be in that tool every day and understanding how to use it as a tool, not as a voice to replace you, because we want your human element, but if it makes you more effective and gives you a greater output in shorter time and with less money, that's a good thing. So that's how I'm
Yeah,
really looking at it as a producer.
yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And in my mind, then putting on that producer hat or even the director hat, I have to ask, at what point do I need to? And maybe there's input on this, John. At what point, as a filmmaker, as an indie filmmaker, do I have to pump the brakes and say, look, I've got 3 projects right now, between this, 50,000 to $2.5 million range, right? And they're kind of on the track, running down. The scripts are written. We're now raising money for it. AI hasn't been a part of that plan now. And at what point do you say, okay, pump the brakes? I'm going to now implement AI at the risk of disrupting this pattern that I already have, kind of this model that works. How do I make a smooth transition into that, or do I just need to start a new project from the beginning and have 4 projects going, and this one is AI involved?
There's no question that if you start with AI from the beginning, you're going to do it differently, right? You just will.
Yeah,
Right? The work
yeah,
is going to be a little bit different. To try to inject AI in the middle of a project is certainly going to disrupt things, but I think it has to happen. And the reason I think it has to happen is because your competitors are doing it, right? They're going to be able to get much higher quality shots. They're going to be able to do better quality, lighting and wardrobe, and have the plane scene, that normally would be very, very expensive to do, and now they can throw that in because they know how to prompt, right? And so maybe you don't need the plane scene to get your message across, and that's fine. I also think there's going to be, and I think this is probably an important point, I think there's going to be an appetite by the general public as well for things made without AI. Like I think that will be a genre, right? And I don't know if it'll be huge, but there will be this subset, right? Because nobody today, I mean, well, not nobody. Most people today can just kind of generally accept that visual effects are made with computers, right? And there's computer graphics, but and they're not, oh, that's computer graphics, I'm not going to see that movie. Like that
yeah.
There are probably some purists maybe that are still like, I really want to be the, Steven Spielberg approach, Star Wars, let's make it as real as possible. And people will appreciate that. People will still do that. Steven Spielberg will still do that, but then he'll fill in the gaps with AI and with visual effects and whatever it is. And the reality is it's just another tool. It's another tool in the basket. And so if you're an indie filmmaker, you can't ignore the tool. You got to dive in.
That's so good. A coincidence that you just mentioned Star Wars. I just read an article this morning that says the original print of Star Wars is nearly unwatchable. The opinion is that they did a screening and it was basically unwatchable because we're so accustomed to George Lucas's iterations of it and tweaks that we're very comfortable with that. And now when we go back and watch the original organic Star Wars, we think, wait, what movie is this? I don't even recognize this anymore. And so, yeah, interesting there to be made about the concept of will non-CG, non-AI films, be of interest.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I'm sure
as a tangent, but anyway.
But yeah, I mean, George Lucas really stood out for his decisions there, and many of the great people, like I mentioned, Steven Spielberg as well, right? And many others are just like, I'm going to try to stay away from computer graphics as much as I can, right? Doesn't mean I won't use them, but I really just love capturing a real moment.
Sure.
That matters. And it comes through. You can tell there's robotic, and AI can only approximate humanity. It cannot replace it.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
Give it 100 years and it still can't replace it. It still is,
I know.
Still is mimicking, right?
Being facetious.
It's going to get better. Veo 10 is going to blow your mind, right? You won't even get to tell the difference.
Well, I need to, it sounds like I need to check out Veo 3 because I've got a pitch that I'm putting together with this dog movie that I want to do. And I'll tell you, it'd be nice to have a trailer that I could show people and say,
well, and with your skill set, Garrett, your ability to craft shots, edit trailers, put together compelling imagery, and like, you are a talented trailer editor. You've done most of your own movies. So being able to do that now before any footage is captured to show an investor, this is what it will look and feel like. This is what we're aiming for. I see that as hugely valuable. Maybe one last topic that we could dive in on, Jon, is the economics. We touched a little bit on the economics, how that's going to be impacted by AI. The first obvious thing is that, it's going to cost less to do more. But how do you see it impacting people's ability to make money in this industry? Because I don't see, just because you made it with AI and put it on YouTube, that you now have a career. That's not a direct line, right?
Again, you have to stand out. You have to be the cream of the crop still, whether you're using AI or not. What you create has to connect with people at whatever level, whether it's adventure or action or horror or comedy or whatever it is, whether it's made with AI or not. It still has to be really, really good content, right? I'm a musician. You can see a piano behind me here and a saxophone there. And actually, if I pan the camera a little bit, I've got another piano back there and more guitars and another piano over here against the wall.
Look at that. Wow.
With Aragorn's, sword sitting right there. So anyway, I love movies, and if in another life, and maybe not in another life, in this life. So I'm a composer. I write a lot of music, and it's all over, all the Spotify's and Apple Music's, all that stuff. But I'm going to score film, right? That's what I'm going to do as I continue to grow up. I love that I've always been a pianist and composer, and that's part of why I love movies so much, is the music itself, right? And I can tell you this is what's scary. A massive percentage, it's something like 35% of all music today on a daily basis that is submitted to Spotify is created by AI. Today, June 20th, 2025, over a third is AI generated, right? And so how do I, as a mere mortal, compete with that, right? And the reality is the music's good. It's really good. AI can write music as well as, that at least approximates as well as John Williams and Thomas Newman and, Hans Zimmer and these great people, because it learned by mimicking, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why, right? But does that mean John Williams is out of a job? Well, he's retired at this point, but does that mean Hans Zimmer is out of a job? No, I don't think it is. I still believe that originality, the human touch, there's just things that AI can't quite do. But when you dive into costs, right, to bring it back to this element here, I'm an indie filmmaker. I want a John Williams level score. I can do that now. I can do that, and you'll hear it and you'll be like, wow, that's a really good score. That's awesome, right? That sounds like John Williams, you know? Oh yeah, cost me $14 to make that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The follow-up, I guess, to that is on the revenue side, right? It comes down to, yeah, you still have to have an audience of people willing to exchange their time and attention and capital for whatever it is you made. And if you don't know how to do that, you know, you can be the best generative AI filmmaker on the planet, but if nobody wants what you're selling, you make $0. And I think that requires an audience, and I think it requires that connection, those relationships of like, oh, it's the new Chris Nolan film. It's the new Ryan Coogler film. It's the new Greta Gerwig film. Whatever it is, I'm going to go see it because of the relationship I have with the films that they've already made in the past that I've loved. And so that becomes even more important as we're leaning into and expanding our experience with using these tools. If we ignore the humans that are ultimately going to buy the stuff we're making, then it's not going to work out.
Comes back to the humanity, right? It comes back to the real connection, the connections that we desire as humans, right? We want to talk to people that are like us. We want to see things that remind us of ourselves. We want to, see how that character gets through this trial. You're like, oh my gosh, I've been in this situation. Or I'm in this situation. How's he going to get through it? And, we want to be inspired by other people. We really do. And I truly believe that AI can, that AI can be used as a tool to create films that accomplish those things. But in the end, they're still all being done with humans at the helm. Yes, there are the examples, and there will be more and more examples of autonomous agents, maybe in a completely autonomous movie studio, right? That just says, hey, we're going to come out with a movie every 3 months, and we have unlimited budget for running these GPUs and all of these AI models, and we're going to test it. We're going to do the same process that you would do, screen testing, all those things that you do in the process of making a movie, but it's going to be done at hyperspeed, and we have 10,000 autonomous agents working together on it at the same time.
Wow.
And just imagine the possibilities of what will happen. That what I just said right there is probably already being done somewhere.
Probably in the works somewhere.
So
Yeah.
putting that together and getting ready to make that happen, and we're going to like it or we're not going to like it, and they're going to adjust. And the cool thing about an AI is it really doesn't have any feelings. It doesn't care if you don't like it. It's trying to just get an outcome, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to create cool content. Some of it you're going to be like, wow, I don't want to like this because I'm against this, but I liked that. That's going to be the transition. The transition is going to be painful. I think the biggest pain in all of this, guys, is going to be the transition.
Yeah.
Right? You skip ahead even just 20 years to now, and I think we'll have kind of balanced out and figured out and gone into this next kind of age of technology, right? But the next 5 to 10 years are going to be painful. There's going to be pain. You're going to, if you want to avoid that pain, learn the tools, stay ahead, keep yourself at the top. But the reality is it's going to be tough. You're going to have to work hard to navigate this.
Yeah. Well,
I'm encouraged and terrified, but it's, as an independent filmmaker, and our audience would certainly understand this. There is no path. We've always been carving our own paths, and so to look at this and say, hey, here's another tool that's going to help my storytelling improve and help me reach my audience better, seems like something we can embrace and not be afraid of. It's awesome.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it. I really am not, and that's because I understand it well. Right. I see, but what I'm afraid for, this is really what I'm afraid for. I am afraid for those that haven't taken the time to start really diving in. Those are the people that are really going to be like, whoa, what the heck? That person just zoomed past me and I'm sitting here. I haven't even started my engine yet, And so that's the play that the people that are going to be, that are literally getting let off by big tech companies and by other companies, whatever, it's because the people that learned AI have figured out how to replace their team with AI.
Yeah.
Right. So be the one that learns it, be the one that learns it, be the one that drives it, be the one that creates that first, big time blockbuster with AI, or maybe not completely AI, but heavily AI assisted. And the big scenes that were, maybe were out of your budget, now they're in your budget, right? I mean, there's really cool opportunities there if you just know how to put it together.
Yeah. I think those filmmakers that are in my audience, that 40s and 50s and 60s, we've seen with every revolution, those that resist the change and try to fight it are the ones who get left behind the fastest. And so that's not the answer. It's not like, well, I'm just going to ignore this and fight it and complain about it. It's like, that's not going to help you get ahead or have a sustainable, resilient career in this industry. So
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it does come down to, well, get on ChatGPT and ask it to teach you how to use it. And you can do that. And a week later, you're going to be 90% of the way there. I think it's not a huge first step, but if you ignore it or if you fight it or you resist it, I think it's going to be at your detriment.
amazing. This has been thoroughly fascinating, and I'm learning a lot. I've taken some notes, and right after this, I'm going to go see how I can implement some of these tools in my current project. It's awesome. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing what you make. Be sure to share that with obviously the audience and with me, right? I want to see what you're doing, and those little experiments matter. I talked to, just in closing here, I talked to a big YouTuber, right? I won't say his name, but a big YouTuber, and I said, hey, I want to work with you and do some AI training and stuff, and he's like, I'm really interested in it, but I posted a couple things about it, and I lost like 20,000 followers, right? I mean, this guy has 10 million followers, like big time YouTube guy. And, been in the film industry for a long time, and really the YouTube film industry, right? That's really, where he started.
Sure.
But man, there's some people that are really against it. Right. And so I just think that's just short-sighted. I think you got to just say, all right, it's here. Let's understand it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's make a decision. Do we want to use it? Do we not want to use it? But it's just it's another creative decision that you're making in your process. And I don't think it's to be feared. I think we just all move forward and go into this brave new world together.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good summary.
I like it too. Jon, if people want to learn more about you, learn about your Gen AI PI, follow you online, where should we send people?
You know what? I'm on every platform. Most of my platforms, I'm at Cheney Piano. Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever. I have a pretty solid following and presence on all of those. I think on LinkedIn, if that's yours as well, just look me up, Jon Cheney, and then genaipi.org, Gen with a G, genaipi.org is if you want to learn AI and do it with me and my processes, then jump on in. I'd love to chat. Would love to help you guys. But really grateful to be here today. Both Daren and Garrett, really a pleasure to discuss film and AI.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your insights with us. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions. We may do a round 2 for this.
Yeah, we'll have to follow up with you. Yeah, for season 3, year number 2, Jon. You consider yourself booked.
Perfect. Yeah. Once we hit the 2-year anniversary, 1 year from now, let's do it. I'm ready.
Boom. Done.
Hey, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Jon.